Hello, I'm Diane Richard, your host of Let's Talk with Diane Richard. I was so excited to have had the amazing opportunity to interview my guest. This person is no stranger to TV and radio. He is no stranger to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he certainly is no stranger to all that he does for the Pirates charities. Any guesses? I won't keep you in suspense any longer. My amazing guest is one of the great Pittsburgh Pirates boys of summer, winner of Game 3 of the Pittsburgh Pirates' 1971 World Series, which turned the misfortunes of his team around, and winner of Game 7, which clinched the World Championship for the Pittsburgh Pirates. My guest is none other than baseball legend and 1971 World Series hero, Steve Blass. What an incredible honor it was for me to sit down and have an amazing conversation with a man who shares with the world such an extraordinary legacy. Not only is he an awesome individual, but a man who has a huge heart and cares so much about people. Through my excitement in sitting down with this incredible man, I learned so much about Steve Blass. His life on the baseball diamond is literally one for the books. We talked extensively about the book that he penned titled Steve Blass, A Pirate for Life. What an unbelievable journey Steve laid out in this well-written biography of a man and his genuine love for baseball since he was 8 years old. He fondly and lovingly speaks of his journey with some of his teammates and personal friends on and off the field, like baseball greats Roberto Clemente, Manny Sanguillen, Bill Mazeroski, and Willie Stargell, just to name a few. He also spoke fondly of his love for Pirates Fantasy Camp, in which he participated and mentored campers as they lived out their fantasies of being a pirate for a week in Bradenton, Florida. He was so careful and tried to ensure that he paid tribute or said a kind word about those who have shared in his journey along the way. But as you can imagine, Steve has impacted many lives on his journey, and it would be impossible to name everyone, but he tried. Well, I could go on, but I'll stop talking so you can listen. Please join me as we are taken on this wonderful journey with Steve Blass, a pirate for life.
Okay, I'll take.
Hello, I'm Diane Richard, your host of Let's Talk with Diane. Today, I have the honor of interviewing one of the legend boys of summer, Steve Blass. Welcome, Steve.
Yeah, welcome. Good to be with you, Diane.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
To it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I know you have stories, and we're going to get to that. I've heard so much about you, and again, I am just so honored to be here and able to talk with you today.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. So, you know, a lot of people know you as a Pittsburgh Pirate. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Connecticut and played a lot of baseball, obsessed. That's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I'm one of those rare people that has had a chance to live my dream. And I don't take that lightly because we all have dreams, how we want to live and what our dreams are. And if you get lucky enough to do that, why, you're a very fortunate person. So growing up in this little town in Falls Village, Connecticut, went through all the baseball stuff, went to grammar school and high school there, and finally wound up playing high school baseball. And I got spotted by the scouts, and they say, we would like you to play professional baseball. And I had a couple of teams that were interested. My team growing up was the Cleveland Indians.
Okay.
And I was an hour from New York City. People said, you live in Connecticut, you're near New York City, and you're rooting for the Cleveland Indians. Why was that? I said, well, because when I was growing up, I played all these fantasy games by myself, Cowboys and Indians, and I always rooted for the Indians. To the point where my first car was a Pontiac. There was a Chief Pontiac.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Chief Pontiac.
Yeah, but the Pirates were interested. The Indians offered me a $2,500 bonus to go away and play ball, and that was in 1960. The Pirates came along. Money. Yeah, that was. And I would have done it in a minute, but the Pirates came along and said, "We'll give you $4,000, and you can sign and play right now." I said, "Give me a pen. Where can I sign?" So, but I had a wonderful childhood. You know, it was kind of Norman Rockwell stuff up in New England with this little town I grew up in. I tell people that our town was so small that we didn't even have a town drunk. The guys had to rotate. Until my Uncle Larry took over. He retired the whole thing.
He retired everything,
yeah,
right?
He took charge. So I got a chance to play pro baseball, and off I went to play pro baseball in 1960, and here I am 60 years later, still involved with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
60 years later.
60 years later with one organization. I did some other things along the way, but I always was connected with the Pirates, and I'm so proud of that. So very proud of that. Bill Mazeroski was just a Pirate. Willie Stargell was just a Pirate. And to be in that company, that's pretty good stuff. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Nobody stays in one place forever. So, you know, the loyalty.
And that is loyalty.
It's loyal, and that's an enormous word to me. An enormous word to me, because somebody gives you a chance to live that dream.
Yes.
I will never quit on the Pittsburgh Pirates because they gave me that chance. I mean, it's such rare stuff. So this city, this organization means the world to me.
I can tell that you were raised by good people.
I was. My dad was a small town plumber. My mom kind of worked all over our hometown. She cleaned houses and did this and then that and the other thing. And yeah, I had a wonderful childhood. I've got 3 brothers and a sister. I lost a brother, but I still have 2 brothers and a sister. And we're having a big family reunion. We got a little cabin up in the Laurel Mountains, and this summer we're all going to get together and bring all our old pictures, Mom and Dad and the whole group, and it's going to be a wonderful week. So it's been a fairy tale of a life for me. I got a chance to live my dream. I got a wonderful family. I've been welcomed into this city, and we've been made to feel welcome, and that means the world too. So I see people in the grocery store or restaurant or the gas station, and as long as you've got time for people, if you have a minute, that's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
All you have to have is, and it's so easy to be kind. It's so easy to have a minute. And that's why things have gone so well in Pittsburgh for me.
So what would you tell someone as far as living their dream? What would you tell them? Don't
lose track. Be ever grateful. Be loyal. We talked about loyalty. You live a dream. You look back at a certain age, which I am 77, and you look back, what along that trail of living your dream should I remember? And I'm thinking more and more of reaching back, people, places. So I'm retiring at the end of the season, and I'm going to have some time to do some of that. You know, I've got grandchildren that I want to tell about my life that I've dreamed living and have lived. But I want to go back to, there's a few places I want to go back to, and some people that I want to reconnect with. The people I've met along the way are phenomenal. Just, you know,
and
in the course
thousands of people you've met along the way. I mean, you know,
in the course of a lifetime. And then there are a lot of acquaintances. I have a very good friend who passed away. He said, "You're going to have a lot of acquaintances. If you can look back and say you've had 5 great friends, you're a lucky man and a wealthy man."
You know, my grandmother, she would tell me that as well. She says, you will always have people who want to be with you or near you. She says, but the people that you call your friend, make sure that they are your friends.
Yeah.
Because they'll stick with you when the chips are down.
Yeah, and you know, I got tested like that at the end of my baseball career when I couldn't pitch well anymore. And then you really learn more about yourself and your friends, and it's it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We're going to talk about Steve's book. An amazing read. An amazing read. Steve Blass, A Pirate for Life. Let's talk a little bit about what prompted you to even write this book, and then we're going to go through, you know, a few of the chapters and let you tell our viewers, just give them a little bit so that they'll go out and they'll get this book because it is amazing.
Well, you know, there are a lot of stories in there. Most of them are true, Diane.
Most of them.
As long as there's the slightest thread of truth in a
then
story.
It's true. Then it's true.
Because baseball is a sport about the stories. You know, they're getting into the analytics so heavily now, and all the stats and the numbers. It breaks my heart. And it is a game of some numbers, but it's also a game of stories. And to look back, I never went to college. Yeah, I went to the University of Baseball. So I have a really good recall of all that stuff. And I don't know much more, but I can recall stuff from Little League all the way up through the minor leagues and the major leagues, and it's just been an amazing journey.
Wow, that's just incredible. When we talked a few minutes ago about friends, you've got some friends in this book.
Yeah.
You have people who not only idolize you for you, and I don't mean like an idol, I mean they love you. And I mean, just reading this and reading some of the things that people have said, it's just amazing.
Well, you keep track of the people you run across in the course of a lifetime.
Yes.
So many, and not just in baseball. And that's the interesting thing. I've met so many people in baseball, but you know, moving to Pittsburgh, the people at Pittsburgh have nothing to do with baseball, and they have lives, and they have their adventures, and they have their dreams, and you know, the thing is, if you can go back and forth, it's not all about Steve Blass, a baseball player. What about your life? Where did you grow up? If you got time to do that, then it creates an exchange, and then things can build.
Yes.
And they might be slight, but they might build into something that's very significant.
Absolutely.
And you won't know unless you asked about them too. So it's got to be a two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, it has to be.
Like we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're doing.
Exactly.
Who's Greg Brown?
Greg Brown is one of my best friends. He's on that list. I ran across Greg Brown when he came to work for the Pirates as an intern and worked in the ticket office. And we had a traveling secretary named Greg Johnson. And when Greg Brown first arrived, I said, oh, I got to keep these guys separate. They're both Greg. Which one is Johnson? Which one is Brown? And when I got to know Greg a little bit better, he was involved and wanted to get into broadcasting. And Mike Lang, the great hockey announcer, who was a mentor of Greg's and a mentor of mine, helped me so much in broadcasting, and Greg thinks the world of him. So Larry, Moe, and Curly, Greg and Mike and I became friends, and Greg went up to wanted to be a broadcaster, and Mike Lang told him, if you want to broadcast, you got to go to work, you got to broadcast games. It doesn't matter if it's Little League games or minor league games or whatever. And Greg wound up going up to Buffalo, New York, to do not only Buffalo Bison's AAA baseball, but Buffalo Bills NFL football.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of where he cut his teeth in terms of broadcasting. So after he did that a few years, he came down and he became part of our broadcast team. And the more I got to know him as a broadcaster, and this horrible disease he has of not being able to say no to anybody for any cause, for any help that he can do for somebody.
Oh, sounds like my sister.
Yeah, and I said, you know, I'm suffering from similar symptoms. So we feel the same way about a lot of things. He has an incredible passion for not only the game of baseball, but Pittsburgh Pirate baseball.
There's nothing like Pittsburgh Pirate baseball.
Well, in my mind, there is.
In your mind, it is absolutely.
Yeah. But he is. I think now that Vin Scully, the Dodgers' famous broadcaster, is retired, I think Greg is one of, if not the best broadcaster in play-by-play men in the game. He prepares like crazy. He's at the ballpark early every day. We've become to this point where I struggle every once in a while with a word or something. Every mistake I make, and I make my share, over these 60 years,
we
all
all
this
do.
stuff. Greg covers me. And I said, you know, I talked all over you last night in the broadcast. You know, I interrupted, I talked over him. No, he didn't. I didn't hear you do any of that. And I know he does. And I know he did. And he's kind, he's professional. But he is terrific at what he does. The excitement level, and he's become one of my best friends. And the criteria that I think we both believe of, if something happened 4 o'clock in the morning and you get the call, I need you. You wouldn't ask what happened.
Where are you?
How can I get there?
Yes, yeah. I'm there.
And that's the criteria. And so it's so easy. And one of the interesting things we do, and we can talk about this. What are they going to do? Fire me now? So every night that we're on TV, and we interchange. Some nights we do TV, sometimes we do radio, and sometimes I work with Greg, sometimes with Joe. But we usually go there, get ready, and then there's a lull before the game starts, and we'll go out on the fire escape and smoke a cigar, right next to the "Do Not Smoke" sign. But it's outside. It's not in anybody's room. It's not in anything. So. And we'll discuss our families, you know, what's going on in the world. And there's a Major League Baseball game coming, and other people might be petrified. Oh my goodness, you're going to talk. You're going to be on television. We'd shoot the breeze about, you know, what was going on, or what kind of car is driving down the street, or so. It's just easy. It's just the easiest friendship in the world, and so that's who Greg Brown is.
I can tell that there's that kindred spirit.
Yeah.
Thing going on.
And Diane, there's also a preliminary part of that too, because there are a lot of other broadcasters I worked with who I feel strongly about. Bob Prince, legendary Bob Prince.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And you know, when I got called up to the big leagues, you know, you got to go over and say hello to the players there, you know, the Bob Friends and the Vernon Laws and all the famous guys that I joined. But you also had to be aware of going up to say hello to Bob Prince, because he was bigger than life. I mean, Bob Prince could go in the West Mifflin Fire Department and command the room. He could go to the boardroom of U.S. Steel and command the room. He had that kind of a presence in Pittsburgh, and he was the first guy I broadcast with. And I learned a lot, and he taught me everything that I needed to know, because I had no clue. And we were in the middle of a ball game one time, in the middle of an inning. They're in the middle of an at-bat, and you're forbidden to have any booze in the broadcast booth. I hear him on the phone, "Send up 2 screwdrivers." I thought something was loose in the booth. He was going to tighten. It was not a screw. It was liquid. It was the liquid kind of screwdriver. But he was great to me. Lanny Terry was great to me. Mike Lang and I did cable, and that was hilarious. Some of the stuff we did. We did a parody of Bartles and James one time as a broadcast. And
do they even make that anymore, I wonder?
I doubt it. I doubt it. They might have stopped doing it after what we did. After what we did. And you know, the guys I worked with, Kent Dirtovanis and John Sanders and Jim Rooker and all the other guys I worked with. And the one point I always like to make is that I was handed a job at the Major League level. The play-by-play guys, like the Bob Prince and all the guys that weren't former players, they were the guys that schlepped all the equipment to every minor league ballpark and set it up and did the games by themselves, earned everything. They were not handed jobs. And you know, there are some markets I know where those kind of guys resent former players getting jobs. That never happened to me. Everybody that I worked with, play-by-play guys that had earned their spurs and worked so hard and weren't handed jobs, they couldn't have been better to me. And so you know, the Lanny Terrys and you know, Joe Block that I work with, they're great, and they help me so much, because I still don't know what the hell I'm doing.
After 60 years.
Yeah, I talk into this thing and people hear a ball game. That's all I know. So yeah, I have to acknowledge them, because they've been more than kind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And who better to know the game? Yeah,
well, I've got this, I can't forget that. That's why I wrote the book. I remember things from Little League, and all the way up through high school, and my high school coach, who was so tough on me, because he knew I was going into professional baseball, and I would have to be tough, you know, in the minor leagues.
Yes.
18 years old, trying to work my way up. So one of the interesting things about growing up and having those experiences was the fact that the Pittsburgh Pirates had signed 3 other guys before me coming through my high school, so the scouts knew about our high school. So that helped. But this high school coach, who is 91 now,
oh my gosh,
and he's going to come out to my night, September 28th.
Oh my
the Pirates are going to be so great, they're going to fly him and his wife out, and that will mean the world to me.
Oh my gosh.
He was here when they kind of had a night for me after my 50th year of being involved. They flew him out and his wife, and so that was wonderful too. So the point being that I wanted to write all this stuff down or get it down on paper before I'd forget it. And I had this wonderful recall down to the point when I was playing Little League, and my father was our coach. And I wasn't playing because I was 8 years old. We had older kids in our Little League. And I wanted to pitch so badly. I stole his car keys and I said, I'm not going to give them to you unless you say I can pitch. Well, I didn't even get to go to the next 4 games, so it didn't work.
Wonder why?
Didn't wonder. No surprise. But having my dad as a Little League coach, that's another thing that's great. All these little mile markers along for me have been so positive. Even the downtime when I was pitching so bad after coming in second in the Cy Young voting and winning 19 games, and after a World Series, it happened like that. I couldn't pitch anymore. Couldn't find the plate. People in Pittsburgh never quit. I never got a discouraging letter, and I got hundreds of letters, and
true fans don't give up on you.
Yeah, well,
true
people,
fans.
true people.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So anyway, to address the book, I wanted to cover everything from Little League on. So I'll start. We won't go through the whole book, but bits and pieces. My most embarrassing moment in baseball.
Oh, geez. Okay.
When I was 8 years old, on this Little League team that had the older players, my dad was coaching. During that season, I was terrible. I was 8 years old and I couldn't do anything. I didn't play much, but I hadn't had a hit all year. So we're playing up in this little town, Falls Village, Connecticut, and I'm in the on-deck circle. I'm going to hit next, and I had to go pee. But I said, I'll be so embarrassed if I call time and run around the back of the dugout. And I said, well, I've never had a hit, so I'll just go up and strike out quick like I usually do, and then I'll have time and nobody will know. Well, I got up there, and darn if I don't dunk the ball over the third baseman's head. And I run around first, into second, a double, my only double. So happy. Oh my goodness, I still have to do this. And I did. But nobody knew because that was 1950 and we had these heavy gray wool uniforms on. Nobody knew. Actually, it felt pretty good for a minute.
It's like that commercial, Mom, we have a situation.
We have a situation, yeah. So that was my most embarrassing moment in baseball.
Oh my gosh,
so,
that is too funny.
But yeah, the little small town stuff, and being a bat boy for the local town team that played on Sunday afternoon. So all this part of that Norman Rockwell stuff. So yeah, so that's how it starts. But the baseball book is unique, I think, because I wanted to write a book, but I'd read so many sports books, and it goes like this. Here's my childhood. Here's my minor leagues. Here's my major leagues. Here's my World Series or Super Bowl, and here's my stories. Well, my story, I thought, and the only reason I decided to write a book, my story was unique in that I went from here, top of the thing, just won the World Series, then won 19 games, and then nothing, to one of the better pitchers in the National League, to nothing, to out. And I thought that's what made it unique, and that it didn't destroy me.
Yes.
So, and that's why I decided to put the tough chapter as chapter 1. That's how the book starts, about those 2 years where it was just awful. I mean, it's documented in there. There were nights that I was living in the South Hills. We had a house there for 42 years. And there were nights during those 2 years where I would be up in the backyard at 4 o'clock in the morning with tears coming down my eyes because I knew I wasn't going to be a Pittsburgh Pirate anymore. And that was tough. And it was tough on our family. We circled the wagons because my kids were 9 and 7.
Yes.
And other kids can be difficult and cruel without knowing they are.
Yes.
Like the year before, they were asking my boys to get my autograph for them to take home. And then when I was going bad, they said, your dad's a bum. You know, that kind of thing can happen. It can happen in any scenario.
Yes.
But the whole thing was very difficult. But the family was intact. The kids, we tried to explain what was going on with them, and we got through it. We got through it. And it didn't ruin my love for baseball. could not.
Clearly.
And it was an unbelievable test.
Clear. Oh, yeah.
But going through that, that's why I put that part in the first chapter, because I thought that might make the book more unique. And then it gets a lot of fun after that first chapter.
Fun.
It gets to be a lot of fun. So that's kind of the outline and the skeleton of the book.
Well, now, in reading this, Eric Sherman, I was impressed with him. Tell our viewers about Eric Sherman.
Yeah. I decided to write a book, so who's going to help me write it? So I thought, well, George Will is a fabulous baseball fan. You know, he's in Washington doing all that stuff. John Grisham, great author, is a fabulous baseball fan. And I said, wouldn't it be great if they could help me write my book? And I was working with Tim Neverett, another play-by-play. I should have included him in that list. He's working for the Dodgers now.
You just did.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, they were just in here, and they went to college in Boston, in the Boston area. And I should remember the school. But anyway, they were classmates. And Tim said, you know, my buddy Eric Sherman is an author, and he wrote a book about a Dodger player previously, the Glenn Burke story. And he would like to talk to you about possibly helping you write your book. I told Tim I wanted to write a book. So Eric came in and said, you know, see, I understand George Will would be a great writer, great to do it. John Grisham would be great to do it. But there will be some of them, because of their notoriety and their position and their status and all that, there will be some of them in the threading, in the tapestry of that book, or in the weaving of that book. He said, if I write it with you, it'll be just you. It'll be all you. And I said, I don't know if I got enough for a whole book. He said, when I get through with you,
you'll have enough.
You will have enough. And he was absolutely tireless and fabulous about. We did a lot of it over the phone, because he lives in New York, just outside New York City. And one summer, I know we were on the phone all summer. It'd be 3- and 4-hour conversations, and then I would have to go to the ball game and talk for another 3 or 4 hours, you know, broadcasting the game. I would forget who the heck I was going to be broadcasting the game about, and I'd be lost in 1978 or somewhere and going to do a current ball game. But he was tireless, and we got to be really great friends. And since that was the second book he wrote. Since then, he's written a book about the New York Mets of 1969, the Miracle Mets, the '86 Mets. I'm sorry. And he's written a book about Mookie Wilson, and so he's really taken off. And so we did the book, and we'd go back and forth, and he would write drafts, and I said, no, that was, you know, understand, Eric, I was in the big leagues, and I went back to the minor leagues that year, and then I came back, and you know, there was a position, I was going up and took a step backwards, and so we had to clarify a lot of stuff. And Triumph Books, I think a division of Simon & Schuster, I shouldn't say, because but I know it's Triumph Books, liked it, and we had to think of a title. And so, what do you think, Steve? They asked me, and I said, well, you know, there's an expression in baseball for pitchers, high and tight, low and away. You know, you pitch them high and tight and low and away. And I said, well, it could be high and tight, the high part of my career, or low and very away. I said, very far away. And they said, no, that's too much of a downer. So they said, what about a pirate for life? I said, that sounds like it should work perfectly.
And it summed it all up.
Because of the tenure, the number of years involved. So this is year 60. And so I'm very proud of the book, because I was very honest. My wife Karen says you're brutally honest.
It's a fantastic read. It is a fantastic read.
So I get my chance to play professional baseball. The Pirates signed me to a contract, give me a $4,000 bonus, and $250 a month. Ooh. I thought I was rich. This is 1960.
Yeah.
And I've never been away from Falls Village. And now I've got to fly to Kingsport, Tennessee to the Rookie League. So I'm going to live on my own now. So I get there.
And how old were you?
18. I just turned 18. I turned 18 on April 18th, and I was in Kingsport, Tennessee, June probably 22nd, something like that, the end of June.
But prior to that, you were at home with mom and dad,
right?
Yeah. Okay. So that was a transition for you.
Yeah. So actually fairly early June, because I spent 2 months in Kingsport. So I go to Bradley Field, the airport in Hartford, Connecticut, and we take off, and the plane banks to the left, and I lean to the right, hoping I can balance. Talk about naive.
Yes.
And the stewardess came back and would you like a cocktail? And I said, I'd love a shrimp cocktail. I never saw her again.
She's probably like, where did he come from?
Yeah, where's this guy coming from? So I got to Kingsport, Tennessee, and I'd never been away from home. And there was a boarding house where this lady, wonderful lady, had like 5 or 6 extra bedrooms, and it was like the movie Bull Durham. You know, there were 4 or 5 of us in the various places, and you'd wake up and there'd be 2 new guys in that the Pirates had just signed out of high school, because we were all coming out of high school. And then they'd release a guy. So one morning you'd wake up and 2 guys are gone, 2 new guys are in there.
Yeah.
So the Pirates signed 40 boys that summer. And 2 years later, there were 7 of us left. Only 3 of us got to the big leagues.
And they were?
And they were myself, Jimmy Price, and Billy Knock from Pittsburgh, another one, Gary Wozlewski. So it's really, the odds are against you. If I ever knew the odds are against you, because very few guys that get signed make it to the big leagues. And Don Bosch. So there may be 5 of us out of the 40. But I'd never been away, so the first thing I did, I went to McDonald's, and then I got a 6-pack of beer. I was sick for 3 days. Whenever I got near a bottle cap when I was in high school, I'd get sick. But I was on my own.
You were on your own.
And I had a few bucks in my pocket.
That's right. That's right. You had more than a few bucks in your pocket.
Yeah, I did.
But 1960.
But I'd never been away. My mom had always washed my clothes, so it got to the point where I had to wash some socks and some underwear. So now I go to the laundromat, first time.
Oh, geez.
Throw them in the thing, and there's
everything, right?
Yeah, through 6 pair of underwear, 6 pair of socks, and I look up on the wall, and there's this kind of a box that said soap, little dispensing machine. So I looked, and little boxes like that, we all know them, and I said, well, I got 12 items, so I'll get 12 boxes.
Oh my gosh.
I threw them into the laundromat, and now the foam starts coming up, and I ran away. I ran away, as God is my judge. Now, again, some of these stories are true, some aren't, but this one is. For the rest of that summer, I had a box with straps around it. I would send my laundry to my mom. I would mail it to her from Kingsport, Tennessee to Connecticut. She would do it and send it back to me.
Oh my God.
And that went on till the middle of August, when she decided to send some chocolate chip cookies back with my laundry in the middle of August.
It all melted.
Everything.
And
it was
you
terrible.
had to watch.
It looked worse than when I sent it. So I learned how to use the laundromat.
You learned how to, and how to use detergent.
Yeah. I backed off.
Yes, backed off a titch.
Yeah, the vending machine was not what I thought it was going to be. So anyway, but those things, in the minor leagues, and you traveled around by bus, but it was great, because that's all I wanted to do since I was 8 years old, and I was doing it. And I went up through the minor leagues, and the various stops. I played all over. I played in Kingsport, Tennessee, Dubuque, Iowa, Batavia, New York, Asheville, North Carolina, Kinston, North Carolina, Columbus, Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona, Santiago in the Dominican Republic, which was an experience. All these minor league experiences. Karen and I got married on October 5th, 1963, and I just finished a year in AAA, and I was wanting to work on a pitch, and the Pirates said, you can go to the Dominican Republic and work on this, and it's a separate league. It doesn't count on your regular record. It's just extra work. And I told Karen, they'll give me $1,350 a month, no taxes, to go down there and work on this pitch. She says, we're getting married October 5th. I said, yeah, and they want me there October 8th. And she says, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to go. So we got married. So our honeymoon was in the Dominican Republic, and it was the year after Rafael Trujillo, the dictator, had been assassinated. The country was in chaos. And we didn't stay on the beaches, on the waters.
The resort areas.
The resort areas of Santo Domingo. And we were in the interior. And we had what they called Capablancos, government machine gunners, in each end of the dugout. And
that's scary stuff.
It was scary stuff. They tipped over our bus one night. They searched everybody. But this is 1963, before there was security. And she still talks about our honeymoon. But I learned this pitch, this slider. It's a type of a fastball, and it helped me get to the big leagues. So you look back on that. It was a big deal. I got married and survived that honeymoon, and now we're 55. We've been married 55 years.
Wow.
Plus 4 years of bad behavior in high school.
Wow. Wow.
So, but that was part of my minor league operations, and that helped me get to the big leagues. So.
I am so glad that you penned these amazing stories, because I mean, they're just so fascinating. Yes, and it's so fascinating, and how you captured it all in this book.
Yeah.
It's just it's just amazing. I mean, I'm telling our viewers, you've got to go out and get this book. And this isn't a shameless plug. This is, you've got to go out and get this book. Just do it. Just do it.
It's something. Also, while we were down there, we put the year together. We're driving in a cab in Santiago, in the central part of the Dominican Republic, and we're listening to the radio, and we keep hearing Kennedy. Kennedy was killed when we were down there in '63. And to feel, just got married, didn't know much Spanish, and you feel so disenfranchised.
Yes.
Your president is gone, and you're not even in the country. So is something else coming? And so that was weird too.
Yeah.
And so
was that November 22nd, 1963?
Yeah, we were right in the middle of the Dominican Republic. Jeez. So yeah, these experiences, and I've been able to remember detail out of it. So that's all part of it.
Let's talk about a lesson in perseverance.
That's that minor league stuff.
The minor league, okay.
But also, Diane, there's an aspect of that, because as a result of that 1963 Dominican Republic stuff, I came to the big leagues in 1964 and had my rookie year, and I did okay. And then we changed managers. So in 1965, this new manager didn't feel like I was good enough to be on his team, and he sent me back to the minor leagues. So that's where perseverance comes in. And it's like anything. We talked a little bit about people who are involved in jobs, and then superiors come in and they want their own people. So this manager wanted somebody else instead of me. So I was and the lesson there, is when you've had a taste of the big leagues for a year, and now you're sent back. Now, if you got your tail between your legs and your head in the sand and you're upset and you're angry and resentful because you think you deserve to stay, but you got sent back, there's a good chance when they reach down to bring somebody back up, if you're not doing your job and you're just really upset, and you might not be the one that's called back up. It won't
be you, right.
Yeah. And so I stayed there the whole year, but I really worked hard because I had a taste of the big leagues, and I wanted to go back.
You wanted it bad, yes.
Yeah,
tasted sweet, didn't it?
Yeah, the taste is sweet, and so I had a good year there, and then I came back the next year for that same manager, and I stayed. I never went back again. But there's a lot of ball players that have had good careers that have been sent back down for whatever reason, maybe a little more seasoning. They need to do something better with their hitting or something better with their pitching. And I got better. I got sent down and I got better. And when I came up to stay. So that was a lesson in perseverance, because oh man, I was a rookie. I did some good things my rookie year and they're sending me down. I thought I did enough to stay. I didn't. I didn't stay for whatever reason, and regardless of what I thought, they thought I needed another year in the minor league. So, anyway,
so
I came up
lessons learned.
Yeah,
lessons learned.
It just took off from there. So yeah, that was my lesson.
Let's talk about your friend and colleague and teammate, Roberto Clemente.
You got a couple days. He's everything you would think he is, and was times 10. He had a presence that other major leaguers didn't have, and you've got to be special to be a major leaguer. You've got to have a presence. He had a presence. He was elevated above us. We were good, but but he was different. I tell people
he had the it.
He had the it. He was even kneeling in the on-deck circle when he's getting ready to hit. He wasn't hitting you. You looked at him. This guy had a presence. The way he carried himself, the way he dressed, the way he played the game. I tell people he could turn a 10-year Major League veteran into a 10-year-old kid because you didn't want to take your eyes off him. You didn't want to miss a thing he did. And all us rookies, when you came to the Pittsburgh Pirates, I mean, there was guys, Mazeroski, Stargell, and Clemente. But you always felt like you had to validate yourself to Roberto Clemente that you were good enough to be on a team, to be a teammate of his. And that's just the way it was. And all of us rookies, when we were young, we felt like we had to be good enough to be on that team. And finally, I went over to him one time and I said, all right, Roberto, here's the deal. If I ever get traded, I'm going to pitch you inside because every National League pitcher pitches you away and you hit 350 every year. He said, Blass, I'm going to tell you one thing. You pitch me inside, I will hit the ball to Harrisburg. I said, oh, okay, good talk. I slunk back into my locker. But
as you slithered away.
Yeah, I slithered away back into my locker and I said, okay, then yeah, that's about enough of that program. So he was trying to be funny, but we became good teammates and good friends, and we all had friends that we were closer to, but we were solid. We were solid, and just watching him play every night, he was amazing. He did things that were so special. I used to use his bat to bunt with because it was such a big bat. It was a 40-ounce bat, which is really a heavy bat in baseball. And he said, you can use it to bunt with, but don't swing away because if you break it, I'll break you. But we got to be good friends, and then it evolved into the World Series where he was the MVP, and he showed everybody around baseball what we'd been seeing around here in Pittsburgh for 20 years, that he was so special. He would have been unbelievable in a market like New York or LA or Chicago. And he was big here, but a lot of people in the global sense of baseball hadn't seen him on a special stage like the World Series. And it was his World Series, and he owned it. And he made 2 plays in that World Series that didn't create an out defensively, aren't on a lot of video. I have them in my mind 48 years later, because it was so unique. He came all the way from his position in right field to the right field line, caught the ball, did a 360, and threw a strike to Richie Hebner at third base. Didn't result in an out. I have that play in my mind. There's another ball that went down the right field line and on the warning track around, like a hockey puck would go around the boards. He picked it up on the warning track in front of the home run wall and threw a strike to Manny Sanguillen at home plate. They held the guy up at third. Nope, no out, recorded. I still have that image. I don't do computers, but I have that hard drive.
You have the hard drive up here.
I don't do them. In fact, I touched my wife's computer once and the garage door went up, so I never went back. But
stick with the cell phone.
Yeah, if I can master that. But he was so special, and that was his World Series. And
but he was special on and off the field.
Oh yeah.
You know,
he was.
And giving back.
Yeah, his philosophy, and he said, I like the people who struggle. He said, I relate to people who struggle. And he was aware of the world around him. He was aware that there was a much larger world other than the world of baseball.
Yes.
And he spent a lot of time. He also had a unique personality, talent. Wonderful thing that I saw a couple different times. In a baseball Major League clubhouse, you're aware of anybody outside the team coming through that door. I mean, it's just our special place. And people come in, writers come in and all that. But you're aware of when it's just not you. When it's just the 25 of us, it's so irreverent. It's incredible how profane and nasty it is, because we're all like brothers.
Brothers.
We go through the same thing. We have the same dreams. We have the same feel for each other. So when somebody comes in, you're aware of it. And Clemente was very sensitive to it. And I watched him when a national writer would come in and say, Roberto would have time for him and do the professional thing, and was good. But I saw him more than a couple times when a scared high school kid that was going to do a high school project, or a new writer that was just the first year on the beat, scared to death, walk in and maybe try to look over toward. Clemente would go over and get those people, and those kind of people, and take him back to his locker and sit down with them, because he knew how scared they were, how ill at ease. And that was a wonderful quality. That
Absolutely.
He had that sensitivity about people that were in need, for a better word, that he could help, that were very uncomfortable. And I saw him, you know, we had a high school kid that came in. Obviously, he got permission from the Pirates to go in and ask him questions for a school project. Just looked lost. And Clemente were grabbing him, took him over and set him down on a stool next to his locker and talked to him.
Such a caring,
I mean, that
gentle
that
giant.
stuff. Nobody really knows about that kind of stuff because it's very subtle and it's not meant to make a headline. Also, the fact that the frustrations he had that English was his second language. He was a very bright man. Many times, what he wanted to portray or express would have been better and more effective for him to convey or express in his native tongue. But saying it in English to a writer or a reporter or something, I know that frustrated him because he was that bright. So sometimes the interpretation would not be exactly what he had intended, because maybe he couldn't grasp quite the right words. But he was sensitive to that. Also, he was sensitive to the fact, I walked in the clubhouse one time, we had a new young player, Latino, and Clemente was in front of a mirror helping him with his English. And sometimes it was comical, because he would, there might be a reference, a wording in a TV show or something he could play with. But he was very sensitive to Latinos. Manny Sanguillen loved him, absolutely adored him. And so there were so many aspects of Clemente that were unique, that a lot of us would like to do, and did on occasion. He did them on a regular basis.
Such a wonderful man. He was a wonderful man.
Yeah, you know, when we got word in Pittsburgh that he died on New Year's Eve, I think the shoulders of the city of Pittsburgh slumped. The grieving was enormous. And then we all went down to Puerto Rico on a charter plane for the ceremony. I said his eulogy in a church. I've never had so much of an honor that I didn't want. But I'm so proud that they asked me to do it. And so that was the second, and then comes the spring training after that. So 3 phases of grieving, because now you grieve after he dies, and then you grieve when you go down there for his memorial, and then it's another month or so where you kind of, you work through stages of grief.
Absolutely.
And so now we're through some stages, and we go to spring training, and for the first time in 20-some years, Roberto's not there in spring training. So it starts all over again.
It's hard.
And then we come north on opening day to start the season at Three River State, and he's not there for the first time. I still think of him to this day. And we got to the point where he felt very, not vulnerable, he felt open to me, because all I wanted to do was make him laugh. I spent 10 years as a teammate wanting to make him laugh, and I succeeded a lot.
You succeeded.
I did. Not every time, but most of the time. So he felt comfortable that, like, he could be himself, and he wouldn't expose himself, because he was a contained guy in a lot of areas, and he could be very stern and aloof, but his standards are so high. He didn't suffer fools. And but I had fun with him, and I thought the world of him. I still do think the world of him. It's a big thing. How lucky I am. Just fate puts you in places. I'm 8 years old. I want to be a baseball player. Later on, I get to spend 10 years with Roberto Clemente. And people keep saying, what was he like? What was he like? What was he like? And I've never said no to talking about him. I've never said, no, I don't want to talk about him today. And I've gotten to the point lately, and I said, well, let me put it this way. Before batting practice on a major league team, guys come out of the dressing room. We're all waiting for the batting practice to start. So you pick a ball and you play catch. And then they say, all right, let's start. And they start, and then it gets structured.
Yeah.
there were a lot of summer nights where I used to play catch with Roberto Clemente. I mean, how many people would give their right arm to say, hey, I had a catch with Roberto Clemente?
Yes.
I used to do it all the time.
Yes.
I had a chance to play catch with Roberto Clemente.
Remarkable man.
And I had to play seasons in the minor leagues with Willie Stargell. And I had a chance to spend 10 years with Bill Mazeroski. Great examples. He used to tell me, kid, don't forget, the name on the front of the uniform is more important than the name on the back. Pittsburgh. A lot of different names on the back.
Yes.
But it's always Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And he said, don't make excuses. You're in the big leagues now. Nobody wants to know why you didn't. They want to know why you did. So little life lessons from Maz, and like that thing about, but they also had a sense of humor too. Like Roberto told me, I hit the ball to Harrisburg. And Maz told me when I was going to pitch against Sandy Koufax, one of the best ever, he said, pitch a shutout, kid, and we'll play for a tie. In other words, we're not going to get it. So try not to give them any.
Yes.
So, I mean, to spend 10 years with those guys, yeah, I went to the University of Baseball, and they were my professors. They helped me go from being a ball player to a major leaguer. There's a lot of ball players.
Yes.
Being a big leaguer.
Big difference.
Responsibilities to your team, your city, your family, yourself. Know where to go, where not to go, know how to handle yourself with the media, you know, the things to do, the things not to do, you know, and that takes you from being a ball player to a major leaguer, being aware of that kind of stuff. So I just think the world of those guys. They were the greatest, and I spent 10 years with them. Awesome.
Now, we have the statue of Maz. We have the statue of Willie. Is there going to be a statue of Steve?
No. And I told them when I was retiring, I said, well, we'll have a night for you in September. I said, I'm flattered. That's wonderful. No statue. I was a very good ball player for the Pirates. Those guys are at a different level. And I understand that, and make me a promise you won't do that. Make me a promise you won't do that, because I know where I am, and I don't want to be portrayed at that level. The Honus Wagner, Willie Stargell, Bill Mazeroski, Roberto Clemente, those people, I was at a good level. Those guys are at a different level, and I'm adamant about that. And
well, some people may differ with you. I understand and respect what you're saying, but understand too that other people, your fans, your other colleagues, they may feel differently. The front office, they may feel differently about you. These people love you, and they love what you've done for 60 years.
And that love affair is both ways, and I don't need anything more than that. I've got a brick down, you know the bricks around the ballpark?
Yes.
It's one of the bigger ones. It's the biggest one I could buy. Yeah, the two sizes, a small one and a big one. And I've got, and all it does is it says, thank you, Bucks, for letting me live my dream. Number 28, Steve Blass.
Nice.
And that's absolutely wonderful, and that's all I need down there, and that's all I want.
I love that.
Because I've got those guys on a plateau.
I love that.
Yeah. So.
Do you have anything from Forbes Field?
You know, I've made a mistake. I actually had a 2 and an 8 from the scoreboard. You know, we had those metal numbers.
Yes, the numbers.
The slots. They drop them down, and they're about like this, about 15 inches by 15 inches each number. I had a 2 and an 8 because I was 28. And I was helping some guy. I was helping Frank Fuhrer, not some guy. Frank Fuhrer gave me an opportunity to do some PR work for Anheuser-Busch here, and I was still involved with the Pirates, but I did that. And so I'd go around to taverns, and one of the taverns, I was trying to get their account, so I said, I'll give you this 2 and 8, because I had all the sports memorabilia. One of the Red Bull Inns, it was down by where the new ballpark is now. And I wish I had kept the 2 and the 8.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But I did.
You didn't get a chair or anything?
Well, I should say, I do have a chair.
You got a chair,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. I have chairs from Three Rivers.
Okay.
Yeah. But here I am in the Hall of Fame, not as a player, but they have a theater up there, okay? And they show a lot of baseball. So the last day of Forbes Field, the night before the last game was a Sunday, Saturday night, we had a big rubber on-deck circle, big, where you get ready to go up to bat. I took a massive Sharpie, and I signed my name. I said, tomorrow after the game, I'm going to grab that. after the out was gone, it was chaos. It's gone.
Oh.
It's now hanging over the entrance of the Hall of Fame theater.
Oh my
And
gosh!
with my little name, guys have sent me pictures when they go into the theater. Say, "You made the Hall of Fame. You made the Hall of Fame." That's probably as close as I'll ever be. But
That is funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that was, but I did have the 2 and the 8. I had a guy do some work at my house, and this is a great story because everybody was looking for something. He had his eyes on second base. He wanted to get second base the last game after Forbes. He runs out after the last out, and he's down there on his knees, and he's grabbed a corner, and he looks, and there's another guy grabbing the other 2 corners. And my guy said, "Look up." And the guy looked up, and he knocked him out. I don't know if he knocked, but he knocked him down. He grabbed him, and then he's gone.
Oh my goodness!
He got second base.
That is too funny.
Oh yeah,
That
so
is
it
too
was
funny.
wild. Yeah, but I've done, God, 100 clinics with little kids.
With little kids.
Just talking about fundamentals. I coached my 2 sons in Little League, and I watch my grandson now. It was easier to pitch against Willie Mays than watch my grandson pitch. I'm pins and needles. So, but, he's a good little ball player, and I like watching him play. And he loves the game.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
How old is he?
He's 16 now.
He's 16
and
now.
I've been watching him since he was 8. Played Little League. Yeah.
Well, probably that apple's not going to fall far from the tree.
Well, I can be his agent. You know, I finally can make the big money, Diane. But yeah, he has fun. We have fun watching him.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we go on to our next topics? Everyone see the book?
No,
Steve Blass, A Pirate for Life.
I'm looking forward to. Well, let me tell you a story about how I got called to the big leagues.
Okay.
Because now, after this Dominican Republic stuff, Karen and I are in Columbus, Ohio again. We're just married. It's 1964, and we got a small apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio. And she's there after we married, and I'm making a road trip to Rochester and Buffalo and Syracuse. We're away on a AAA trip, and it's a long trip. So we wind up in Syracuse, New York, and we're playing a doubleheader at night. So I'm pitching the second game, so it's a long night. We start at 5. I get through pitching at probably midnight, and we're going to go back to Columbus. So by the time we shower and clean up and everything, we're on a bus at 2 o'clock. Drive all the way back on the bus to Columbus. I go right to bed. I get back to the apartment, go right to bed. I'm sleeping, and now it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rings in our little apartment. And Karen picks up the phone, says hello, and this gentleman on the other side says, "Hello, I'd like to speak to Steve." And she said, "Well, he's sleeping, and I'm not going to. I can't wake him up. He's had a long night." "Well, I really need to speak to Steve." And she said, "Listen, mister, my husband's a professional athlete. He's had a long trip, long night. He needs his rest, and I'm going to wake him up." And he said, "Young lady, my name is Joel Brown. I'm the general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we would like to have Steve come up and pitch for us." And the next thing he heard in that little apartment was, "Get your ass out of bed, we're going to the big leagues." And that's how I got the call to the big leagues.
Awesome! Oh my gosh!
You know, every athlete that gets the call, they have the story of how they find out, because you've been dreaming about it since you're 8 years old. And that was how I got the call.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
That little apartment in Columbus, Ohio.
A little apartment in Columbus, Ohio. Awesome.
But we have to talk about the World Series, you know.
Let's talk about the World Series.
Well, it's what you dream about if you're a ball player. So we have a great year, and we go to the World Series. And it's everything that you could possibly think it is. And
were you nervous?
Oh, only me and the laundryman. How nervous I was. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd not pitched in anything like that in my life, and we lost the first 2 games. And it's best 4 out of 7. If you lose the 3rd game, I mean, you're next to death.
Yeah.
You know. So I got a chance to pitch in the 3rd game of the World Series, and it was the greatest game I had ever pitched in my life. I pitched a 3-hitter, and we won the game 5-1. That got us back into the mix.
You're right.
And the great story about that is that it was at Three Rivers Stadium, and after the last out, I'm doing a national TV interview right on the first baseline, because I'd completed the game, pitched the whole game, which doesn't happen anymore. And so Tony Kubek was one of the announcers. He's an old Yankee player, and he was down there. He had a microphone, And we're out there on the field, and we're doing the interview like you and I are sitting out there, and I look up on top of the Pirate dugout, and this guy's struggling with security. Look back, do the interview, and I look back. Now he jumps off the top of our dugout, 10 feet off the ground. And after he hits the ground and takes 2 steps toward us, I see it's my father.
Oh.
And I won't insult your emotions because that would be cruel. That would be not right. My dad wanted to be with his kid when he won a World Series game. This plumber from Falls Village, Connecticut, population 800. He got down there. He got in the middle of the interview. Tony Cooper said, "Mr. Blass, how did you get down here?" He said, "You can put me in the biggest jail you got in Pittsburgh. I'm going to be here for this." And he was so proud. I thought he'd won the darn game. And they took a picture and it wound up in Sports Illustrated of me giving him a hug.
That's priceless.
And you know, we all have fathers or have had fathers, and you know, when you see a certain look, we have those singular moments, and I will have that for the rest of my life.
It's that Kodak moment.
That is joy. That is absolute joy.
Yes.
And so now we win 3 games in a row. So now we're ahead 3 games to 2, and we go back to Baltimore, and we lose Game 6. And Danny Murtaugh, the manager, said, "Tag, you're it for Game 7 of the World Series."
No pressure. No pressure.
No, not too much. 10 much.
10 much.
10 much. So I'm going to pitch the 7th game of the World Series, and Karen was up in Connecticut with the kids because we were making our winter home. We go back and forth because they were in school. So she's up there with my mother and father. And so I'm in a hotel by myself the night before I'm going to pitch the 7th game of the World Series. And I tried to go to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I'm tossing and turning. Now it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So I got up, got dressed. So I'm just going to take a walk around the hotel. 3 o'clock in the morning. Can you imagine? Well, you could imagine. You've been a city cop. If a city cop comes up to me and says, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Well, can't sleep. I'm pitching the 7th game of the World Series tomorrow." I'd still be in some jail in Baltimore, I can tell you that. But the worst thing about that, Diane, is the wait, because you want to find out if you're good enough. This is the pinnacle of baseball, the World Series 7th game. This is the pinnacle. And the hours before just drag and drag. I wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock. The game started at, I think, 1:30. And just waiting for that morning to fight, because I want to find out. I think I'm good enough, but this waiting is killing me. And then I pitched the game of my life. I pitched the whole game. We won 2-1. Clemente hit a home run. He was the MVP. I was number 2. And it was just, you know, I had my game face on. You know, it's amazing the focus you have to have in that circumstance with the enormity of the occasion.
So when it's like that and you have the fans and you know, they're screaming and yelling your name, and how do you focus through that?
You've been trained and developed to do it.
That blank them out.
There's nothing happening. And at the first inning, it was bleeding in. I said, "Oh, I can't." I'm hearing, I'm hearing the crowd. I'm starting to remember how big this is. This is the top. But I got back in, and when you do that, there's no noise. You're really in a bubble.
In a zone.
Yeah, in a zone, a bubble. No, I can't. All it's happening is Manny Sanguian putting down the signs, what to throw. And they're 60 feet 6 inches. That's the distance between the mound and home plate. That's your world. And it's so wonderful and it's so magical, because all I'm thinking about, all right, here's Frank Robinson, here's Boog Powell, here's all these great players that Baltimore had. Here's how I'm going to pitch them. And it just went click. It was like a computer. Click. The old computers, remember how they used to go?
Yes.
Click,
yes.
Click. And it was just, I was 2 pitches ahead of myself. I'm going to throw a fastball here because I want to set him up for a slider or a curveball. And I'm going to try to throw the ball in here because I want to get the ball back outside. And it just went pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch. And there's a great story because it was so close. And Danny Murtaugh, there's no mound visits or no pitch count or anything like that, no tracking how fast the pitches were. There was never a visit out to the mound. And so in the 7th inning, we were ahead 1-0, and I went out to pitch the bottom of the 7th. I took the baseball, and I just took a moment, and I walked around the back of the mound, and then I took it all in.
Wow.
I looked around, and I said, I may never be here again. I may never. I'm so glad I did that. And I took it all in for one moment, and I get back in the bubble.
Wow.
And the great thing is we were ahead 2-0. Well, sorry, we were ahead 1-0. And the way we got our second run is a good story, because Willie Stargell started off the inning, and he got a base hit up through the middle. And so Willie, Willie's big, and Willie didn't have much speed. He's a big man. He ran like a runaway beer truck. So he's on first base, and Jose Pagan is on. They decide to have the hit and run, where when the pitcher let go of the ball, Willie would take off. So they throw the pitch. Willie takes off for second. Pagan hits a gap shot. He hits the ball, and so we're in business. So Willie comes to second base, and our third base coach was Frank Osiak. And Willie, who probably thinks maybe he should stop, Frank is going like this, come on over to third. And Willie used to tell a story, recount the story. He said, really? Really, you want to keep me going? And he gets to third base, and he doesn't know what's happening in back of him now. And the Osiak, the third base coach, says, go for home. And Willie said, really? And he slid into home. It was more like a surrender than a slide. But that was how we got our second run, and that was the deciding run, because they got one run of their own. But that's how we got Willie Round in second. Really? Keep going.
Oh my
really?
Goodness!
And so then I go out and get him out in the ninth inning, and that bubble breaks, and you just get this enormous release of joy. And the thing that went through my mind, they can't take it away. We won it. It's never going to go away. It's forever.
Okay. Yes.
It's forever.
Yes.
It is blank forever. And I didn't know what to do, because you think when you're 10 years old, well, what would I do if I was on the mound for the last hour of the world? And I said, well, I do this, and you have no idea what you do.
You just do.
I ran over to first base, because that's where the play, and I jumped on Bob Robertson. And it's just, it's the pure joy. It's not the choreographed celebration. It's the spontaneous stuff that is so great. You know, now there's a lot of choreographed celebrations in sports, in football, and baseball too. We're one of the chief problems. But the natural stuff, like we had a shortstop the other day, made a spectacular play. The joy in his face, he was 10 years old again, playing baseball. And it doesn't happen a lot, but you love it when it happens.
It's wonderful to see those moments.
Oh yeah, it's pure. Yep.
Yeah.
So I have this 8x10. I've only got a few thousand copies left of that joy, that leap into Bob Robertson's eye. And whenever I autograph it for somebody, I write in joy. It's just pure joy. And so that was my World Series. Seeing my dad jump off the dugout, and winning the game. We snuck him into the dugout, into the clubhouse, and everything.
That's priceless.
So
that is priceless.
The joy that I've had a chance to experience through this stuff is incredible. And
life is good.
Oh,
life is good.
Life is wonderful, and all the people I've run across, and it's been a great trip.
Awesome. Awesome.
1, 3, 1, 2, 3, go.
Bob Robertson was all over him.
This is for you, Steve. Him.
And they just sung me a hymn, and I know what that means. Him, blank, him. Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot, guys. You'll be fine. All of you will be fine this coming spring. So let me tell you what this is all about, Diane, because these are my fantasy campers. I've been doing this fantasy camp. They all love baseball. I mean, they're a great bunch, except for what they just did. But
it's all in love.
Yeah,
it's all in love.
I love being around because they love the game of baseball. And I've been doing this fantasy camp for 30 years.
Oh
and
my gosh.
It's a lot of fun. Some of these guys have been coming 10, 15, 20 years, and it's not cheap.
That's what they told me. I know.
Yeah, and they come down every year, and every morning, C.A.Truss and I will set up his camera. We'll get them all together, and I will conduct the kangaroo court. And what it consists of is it's a combination of what they've done, stupid things that they've done, mistakes they've made, anything I can grab and find them $1 for. And it goes to Pirate Alumni Charities. Or I can, and I've got no pride or no shame. I'll make stuff up about them too.
I heard.
Yeah. And so I find them for breathing. Like the first day, I'll get up there and say, all right, baseball camp. You got here yesterday. How many guys called home and let everybody know you're all right? And a lot of them raise their hand and say, all right, that's $1 each. You're down here to play baseball, not to call home and all that stuff. How many of you guys didn't call home? That's $1 each because you don't care about your families. So I mean that's kind of a theme, and I find them for breathing. If they have a belt loop that's not done, or their shoe is on funny, but I think there's never going to be anything. And every morning for the last 30 years, every fantasy camp, I've got 25 or 30 items to work with. And if any of that raw footage, because I get quite graphic about my finding, I'm a very serious judge. If any of that raw footage that come out, I would never be able to show my face in public.
I played for Blass last year, and he started me in left field. So I come in after the first inning. He said, "Marty, you like to play the infield, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, Steve, anywhere but third base." He said, "Okay." He says, "Take third base and play even with the bag."
No, he's a good manager. He was in the game. He likes to win. I remember him saying we were at the championship game that year. He said, "I don't care if it's Little League or the World Series. It's fun to win." Never forgot that.
He was kidding around, talking, and being Steve Blass in a good way. I loved the guy. And then I saw him at dinner, and I had said the prayer. I'm a police chaplain, and he says, "I wouldn't have said all those things if I knew you were the chaplain." And I just said, "Not a problem." But it was funny. He was like, you're just being Steve, and I wasn't offended in any way, shape, or form. He's a great guy, great storyteller.
Let's go.
Ever been fined by him?
No.
Uh-oh, you will now.
Yeah.
Okay.
My favorite Steve Blass story is being a part of his team, having been drafted by him on several occasions. Steve took credit for every single win our team had. Never took responsibility for a loss, but he was more than happy to take credit for anything good that we did. So if a pitcher threw a strike, it was because of Steve. Ball low in the dirt outside, that's not Steve's fault. Even the hitting. So basically, pretty much Steve thought that anything good at camp was because of him, and anything bad at camp was obviously because of our shortcomings. Thanks, Steve.
I played on Steve Blass's team several times. We won a championship once. I was fined for having my wife in camp as a spectator. I remember him talking about.
What did Steve Blass talk to you about?
Well, Steve Blass talked to me
about all the great things, all the wonderful
Steve
things.
Blass.
He's telling stories about you.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I know they're good stories.
They are.
These are the two best veterans we've ever had at fantasy camp. Veteran, and they're vested in the camp pension plan.
That's right.
You get $1 a year for 50 years.
That's right. What a deal, or twice the price.
So we know that Steve Blass is retired. How does that make you feel, and what does Steve mean to you?
Steve means everything, especially at fantasy camp. He's hilarious. I've always enjoyed his finds over the years, watching all the DVDs that my mom's been involved with.
That seems to be a consensus about the fines that he levies on everyone.
And I wasn't surprised. The first day I was at camp, I got fined. I was kind of expecting it. So being a rookie, but no, he means everything to the Pirates. Great broadcaster, great guy.
So we all know that Steve Blass is retiring from announcing. What does Steve mean to you?
Just a great guy, and actually I'll share one story that I hadn't shared before, and that was when I was living in Houston, the Pirates were not playing real good ball at that time. And anyways, I came to a game, and I brought two friends, and we were there, and I was watching batting practice, and and Steve was walking up to the I guess to the box, to the announcer's box, and he saw me. Goes, "Hey, Lise," and so we talked a few minutes, and he said, "Hey, come back tomorrow night. I'll have 2 tickets for you waiting at will call." So he did, and then I found out later that when the game was kind of a little bit slanted towards Houston, he started talking and said that I was down there I was at the game and said my name and everything, and people up here in Pittsburgh were like, "Hey, we heard Steve mention you." Yeah. Yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Awesome. It's nice to be recognized,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Isn't
He's
it?
just he always, I think recognizes people and just is a very friendly and outgoing. Just makes you he wants to make you feel good.
Tell us a little bit about Steve, your interaction with Steve.
I have to say, as a female, that every year that I have come to camp, Steve has made a point of coming over and asking me, is it okay if I say certain things before he actually addresses the group?
That's very kind.
It really is. And there is no fantasy camp without Steve. He is everything to us. And it's going to be, hopefully he continues to come to camp. I know he's not going to be broadcasting anymore, but hopefully he still comes to camp because he really means so much to us. But he just, because of his teasing, and we know it's all in good fun, but if he doesn't tease you, then
he doesn't love you.
Exactly. So, the more you get teased, the better you feel, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. And speaking of Blass, how's the big guy?
So he came out between the first and second game, and he looked great, actually. I mean, I was thinking about it. He looked really well, so I was wondering if he had lost some weight. But then I realized I'd only ever really seen him in uniform, so, maybe the white isn't very slimming.
No, I can tell you that. It isn't.
So it was great. It was great to see him. This is his final year as a broadcaster, and the fact that he took the time to come out today, I mean, it really meant a lot to me. He was standing right there, and he peeked in to the dugout. Wardo! It's like, oh, come up and big hug and everything. And he's just a very special guy, and you get to see all the different sides of him. That he's a comic. In the announcing booth, he's a lot more serious. He's just a different guy, and it's just so interesting to me to see all the different sides of Steve Blass. And then when he's your manager, he was my manager back in 2012, my first year going to the Pirates camp, and we won that year. And seeing that personality come out is completely different, because he's all about, we got to get the win. And then when we won, he was just so happy for us.
Nice.
And, the idea that this guy who is, takes all these responsibilities on behalf of the Pirates, and he does the announcing and everything, and he takes the time and he puts his energy into, guys like us. I mean, it really just makes you feel special when you can win for him. It's just another reason and another strong relationship.
Awesome and amazing. That's amazing. So, do you have any funny stories about Steve?
Funny stories about Steve. Well, I think the funny stories about Steve are things that we can't say on camera. He has some great jokes, some definite keepers that I tell, behind closed doors to my buddies. But let's see, anything funny? Just interesting. So at the closing banquet, for instance, I was lucky enough to win the Nellie Bryles Award, which is like one of the most prestigious awards. And that was,
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It was several years ago, but it's one of those things that once you win it once, you can't win it again. And so the thing that got me was, here it was, is the closing banquet. It was one of the last awards. They say my name. I go up there, I shake hands, and then they say, okay, everybody go home. I'm like, wait a minute, I want the love, I want the adulation from everybody to recognize that in fact I won. If I show up next year and I'm just the same guy, nobody's gonna think of it. So I wore a king's robe next year. I came back, and Carl knows this. I was wearing a king's robe because I said, okay, everybody, show me the love, right?
Give me the love.
And Steve just thought that was he gave me a lot of stuff for it, but he thought it was the funniest thing. He made sure and came over and took a picture with me. And it was, really good. Like, he can really appreciate the little bits of humor that you need to have, as you're going through this.
Fantasy camp is a camp that if you're 40 years old or older, you can come down to a camp and you can be a major league player for a week. You have your uniform with your name on the back. You have your own bat. You have your own bubblegum cards that they make up.
Pirate uniform.
Pirate uniforms,
yes.
yeah. And you go into a locker room. It has your name above your locker. You have your own big league locker. You have your own major league trainers are there. Your major league clubhouse guys are there. So you, in essence, are a major leaguer for a week. And guys that are baseball crazy do this. And every major league team has a fantasy camp. Randy Hundley was a catcher for the Chicago Cubs, and he kind of started it. But every big league club has a fantasy camp. The Yankees have one. They go 3 or 4 different weeks. We have 1 week. We used to have a couple weeks. It's been that way. But and they all come down en masse from Pittsburgh or all over the place. We've got a girl that has been coming here for our fantasy camp for probably 15 years. She lives in Fiji.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. That's Julie. Her name is Julie.
Yes.
She used to be living in California. She would come with her dad. They both love baseball. She came to fantasy camp with her dad, and she's a catcher.
Gosh.
Yeah. And we have people from Texas, Virginia, Florida, all over the place. So you get 8 teams of 12 guys each, and they play games during the course of the week, and they build up to a championship, who has the best record. And they have an all-American night where they can get every autograph they want. All the big leaguers sit at a table, and they can bring stuff through and get everything signed. And so they're major leaguers for a week. So they come on a Sunday night. We have a place down there, so I don't come down with them, but the people from Pittsburgh, they're on a charter flight, and they come down. And so they arrive. We have an opening banquet where Joe Bilodeau, who is our alumni director, and Kent Tekulve, who is a former player, he's the president of our alumni, welcome everybody, introduce all the players, so we all get to go up there and stand. They read all about our stats and all that stuff, so we're there, and they all have a chance to see who we are and what we look like. And the next day, they're led into the locker room where they see their major league lockers. And it's the same lockers the Pirates have. Same locker room, same lockers, and their names over top of it. And they have breakfast served to them in the players' lounge, the players' cafeteria. And then they come out on the field and they play a practice game, and us former players are up in a tower watching 4 different games.
Oh my gosh.
And we do the scouting. We do our scouting. But mostly we stay up there and tell those stories about our playing days. And then they play their game, and then at lunchtime we have our draft, which is hilarious. We draft our teams. So if I'm number 8 choice, I confer with my coach, and I will talk smack to the other managers, and I said, "You guys have just missed Joe Smith. He's the sleeper this week. He is going to be the star that I'm picking him." So the draft is hilarious. And then we
everyone gets picked, though, right?
Oh, everybody gets picked.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have 3 or 4 girls every time, and they're not the last ones picked. They can play.
Oh, I've met some good ones.
Yep. They can. So we go out and they find out the teams they're on. Everybody who is on my team, because I've been there for every team, they come over and tell me how disappointed they are to be on my team. So that's the way it starts. But
and I know you don't let it end there.
Oh yeah.
No, I know.
Oh, I give it right back. Yeah. And so they start playing their games that afternoon, and they play 7-inning games, and that's on Monday morning. They play the first game Monday afternoon. By Tuesday morning, out of the 88 guys that are there, at least 50 of them are in the whirlpool in the trainer's room. And of course, I find them for that.
Because they're sore.
Oh yeah, they're
all broke down.
Yeah, they're all broken down. By the end of the week, everyone has been in the trainer's room at one time or another, and I find them every time I find them in there.
$1.
Oh, find them $1. Yep. So they do that during the course of the week, and then they have a closing banquet, and they go home with their bat and their uniforms and their bubblegum card and a lot of memories. And now it's become a fraternity. These guys stay connected through the internet all year. They've become great friends, and again, a lot of them. We have various levels. Like at the 10-year level, you get a $80 jacket. You've probably already spent 30 grand
to get it.
to get the jacket. But some of them have come 15. We've had a couple 20 years, and they still play.
It's a long time.
Dads will bring their sons. I had a dad and has 3 sons on my team one time.
Wow.
And how wonderful is that?
And up here, a woman brought her son.
Yeah.
So she and her son played together.
Yep, absolutely. It's nothing but fun and good.
Yeah.
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 And so I love it. I've done every one of them.
You know what that says to me? Build it and they will come.
Build it and they will come. Exactly. That's right. The Field of Dreams.
That's right. They will come.
We played the Brewers this past weekend. They had uniforms like the Field of Dreams. I kept thinking Ray Liotta was going to come out of the cornfield. I mean, they looked just like the same uniforms that they had in both in the Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Yeah. Kevin Costner.
Yeah,
that's great.
I played in the Carolina League. Remember Kevin Costner and Bull Durham?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I looked for Susan Sarandon. She wasn't there that year. The year I was there, she wasn't
she
there.
Didn't show, huh?
Damn. But it's all great. You know, the fantasy camps and the playing. You know, so many years, like 16 years of professional baseball, and then the World Series and the major leagues, and
wow.
This city of Pittsburgh that's made our family feel so welcome.
Yeah.
Nothing but good memories.
I mean, Steve's been great. He's been with us, you know, for 60 years. And, I mean, I've been part of this alumni group working with these guys for the last, I've been with the club 30 years, but with the alumni group and fantasy camp for the last 15 years. And have really built a nice, strong relationship with Steve. And he's got my back and I got his, and I look out for him and he looks out for me. So it's, you know, it's a great pair, and I just hope to do it for a lot more years to come. You know, even though he's going to be retired, you know, he's still going to be doing X amount of appearances on behalf of the ball club, and some of those appearances I'm going to be directing for him. So I look forward to those days, and never forget all the good times we've already had. So, Steve, I mean, great knowing you, and look forward to working with you in the future. Take care. All right, bud.
Has he ever find you in fantasy camp?
Does he ever find me in fantasy camp? Carl, every morning he finds me. I mean, I think he finds something to bring my name up about every day. I mean, this past year, obviously, he got me for the Spirit Airlines deal. I mean, almost, you know, every day. But I take it in stride. You know, I mean, if he didn't like me, I don't think he'd call me out as often. So I mean, so it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. As far as playing careers go, the only time Steve and I crossed paths was when he was going through his situation, and you know, we came down and played with the Charleston Charlies in AAA, trying to get it back together. Well, I happened to be a Charlie at the time, still trying to get to the big leagues, and one Sunday afternoon, it is hotter than hell. And Steve is going out and going to pitch that afternoon. Well, he struggles again. The control's not good. And he comes back, you know, finally, I have to go get him, bring him in. And the dugouts in Charleston are just small bunkers. Well, there are a whole bunch of us that don't know what to say to a World Series hero who is now struggling. So when he comes in and he sits down in the dugout, puts a towel around his neck, he's sitting there sweating bullets, just dripping off of him, and all of us are stuffed in the ends of the dugouts. Nobody wants to sit next to him because they have no idea what to say to him. So Steve sits there for a while, and this is not the first time we've seen, you know, him have trouble, you know, with the control. So he's sitting there, he's sweating bullets. All of a sudden, he looks down to his left, he looks down to his right, which is at both ends are all the players. Nobody's sitting next to him. Again, we're in Charleston, West Virginia. He lifts his head up, he looks out at the field, and uttered the immortal words, "Almost heaven, my ass." And the whole dugout cracked up. And to this day, I've told everyone, he might be the only person who could go through what he went through and not have killed himself. I would have never been able to handle it and get through the way he did. But to survive, and not only survive, but thrive afterward in the game of baseball was just amazing to me. And really, for all that he's done as a player and a broadcaster, to me, that is a synopsis of Steve Blass, the person. He could just find a way to deal with everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so here we
Awesome.
go. This
Thank
is going to
you.
be a little a seminar on the base. First of all, you can win a bet in a bar by asking anybody if they know how many red stitches there are. There's 108. So,
Okay.
so you can win a trivia contest.
On every
Major League Baseball.
Baseball.
I don't know about every baseball. That's a good question. But anyway, a fastball is called a four-seamer. So you have 1, 2, it spins like that, so you see 4 seams.
Okay.
And they'll also throw a 2-seam fastball that goes like that, and you only get 2 seams.
Okay.
There's your seminar on the 2 fastballs. A curveball will be held like this, and you get a lot of spin, so the ball goes to the batter and goes down.
But when you're do the curveball.
Okay.
So when you do the curveball,
Yeah, let's go back to the fastball. You release a fastball like this, okay? Straight out.
So you're throwing it
straight across. Now the curveball, okay, is doing this. You're not throwing it straight. You're doing this. You're coming over the front of it to create spin.
Oh my gosh!
So
So you have to twist your arm when you.
Yeah, you have to do this with your. It's all in the wrist.
Oh, in the wrist.
In the wrist.
Okay.
Instead of.
Not
this,
the arm, but the wrist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of this, it's this. So it goes. The curveball either goes straight down like that, or if you throw it from the side, it'll go side to side, and what that does is show the batter a different look. The pitch, instead of going straight, is going to curve down or sideways.
Mm-hmm.
It's also slower than the fastball. So the guys that want to start swinging at the fastball, by the time they get their swing done, the curveball isn't there yet. So that's what they call getting a guy out in front. It gets complicated, but these are the grips. And then people want to know about the knuckleball. They think it's the knuckles. It's always the fingernails, the knuckleball.
Oh.
It's in like that. And you can throw it and the ball doesn't spin and it just goes all over the place and makes good hitters look silly.
Oh.
So that's the knuckleball. And then the changeup is like, remember the fastball, like that?
Right.
And all of a sudden with the changeup, what you do is you put it back like this and you grip it like that. And you can throw it hard, but it can't go fast because a fastball has to be out on the fingers. When you put it back in your hand, you throw it hard, but it can't go fast. It can't come out of your hand like the fastball. So you like to change speeds. Throw it fast and throw it slow so you mess up the hitter's timing.
So the way that you're throwing the ball is predicated on the catcher seeing the swing of the batter, and so they can do their signals, or even the pitcher can see how the batter is swinging, so they signal up to do the appropriate throw.
Many times they'll look at what they did on the previous pitch to tell them what they're going to do on the next pitch. The catcher will see what that guy, he swung and missed, and he really didn't have a good swing of that curveball, so we'll throw a curveball.
Curveball, right, right, so, that's what I'm saying.
Usually the catcher, very simple, 1 is a fastball, 2 is a curve. When he does that, that's the changeup, that's the slow pitch. And sometimes he'll tell you to do this, which is knock the guy on his butt.
Hit him with the ball?
Well, come inside.
Inside. Oh,
yeah, just
okay.
high and tight.
Okay. Now you have to be a very good pitcher to be able to do that and the high and tight, and I mean, so not to hit the person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
because these hitters will try to go across and get the outside pitch. So you have to, if you move him back off the plate, then he can't get to that pitch that you want to throw outside.
I see.
So you get his attention.
I see.
But the catcher will give you all his signals, and if he wants the fastball and I want to throw the curve, I'll go, and he'll go this, then he'll change for me. And sometimes Manny Sanguillen would come out, and he would talk to me in Spanish, and I would listen in English. So now we got a situation.
We got a situation.
But it's about changing speeds and throwing the ball where you want to throw it. But, what's interesting now is all the Major League Baseballs used to be hand sewn by women in Haiti.
Really?
Yep, that was the deal. But now they're on machines. So they can create a different tension on that machine to wrap the ball tighter or looser. It used to be pretty uniform with the ladies, and they stitch these by hands, hundreds and thousands of baseballs. Used to be that you had a belt. You got a belt, and you would file it down. You might cut it. So there's there's a lot of dangerous people. I never did any of those things.
I'm sure you didn't.
No.
I know.
Because I would just go and study in the library instead of learning these tricks. Yeah.
So once the baseballs are, but we talked about the life of the baseball. What is the life of a bat?
Not very long, because these guys order 50, 60 bats a year during the season. And they're so thin-handled now, they break if you look at them, because they want that torque, that whip, for more bat speed.
So not a bat like Stargell had.
Right, or Clemente, the 40 ounce.
Clemente.
Right. His bat didn't break very much because it was
a tree
like
trunk.
an oak tree. Yeah, really, like a railroad tie. Yeah, bats. Yeah. Even people ask about gloves. I would use one glove a year, but some guys use a couple. But you get your favorite glove. Like Mazerossi's glove looked like a piece of cow manure. There was patches all over it and stuff, and it just looked. And he didn't want a big glove. He didn't want the ball to get stuck in the glove. So he just wanted basically some hand protection.
Yeah.
Because he could get it out of the glove and do his double play.
Yeah. So what is your, besides pitcher, what's your next favorite position?
I liked playing third base when I was in school, but I just basically pitched. I was a pitcher. And I had to wait my turn in high school because I told you 3 other guys signed pro contracts with the Pirates. Both of them were Karen, my wife's Karen's brothers. So we thought when we got married we were going to raise bonus babies. Didn't work out. Didn't work
out that way. We have someone that's going to be retiring from broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely.
A guy that has meant so much to Pittsburgh, has meant so much to the Pirates, and I'm sure have meant so much to the fantasy campers.
He's not retiring from fantasy camp.
But he's not retiring from fantasy
That's right.
camp.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Steve Blass.
Oh my gosh. He,
I guess we could be here for days.
Well, as a former police officer here in Upper St. Clair, he was one of our residents and still does live here. So I know where he lives, so in case he gets no, but what a great guy. He's so witty and quick.
The quickest wit I've ever met.
I mean, I thought I was pretty quick, but he just runs me right over. But the fact is, as funny as he can be, and he gets really crazy down at fantasy camp and has a lot of fun with us. But he is just one of the most genuine, friendly, super involved guys, and you couldn't ask for a better guy to run the camp in the morning to do the morning sessions. He just has so much fun with us, makes us laugh.
His rapport with the campers is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows exactly how to gig them. He knows exactly how to get on the same wavelength with them and make them laugh.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure seeing him and he realizes that it's important and that the guys love him, but he just, it's like Mazeroski. He just wants to be treated like one of the guys. And but I come thinking about something that strikes me. I was in the training room this past camp, and I was laying there getting my calf worked on, and it's just sitting around, it's kind of boring, and all of a sudden I turn and look at the door, and in comes Steve. He's got a pair of baseball pants on, no shirt, and he's got this rainbow-colored wig on. And you just sit there and shake your head and go, oh no, what's going to happen now? And it was amazing. It was just so much fun. And these are the kinds of things that Steve does. He's the practical joker, and he loves jokes being played on him, and he loves to play jokes on people. It's just a blast. A blast for blast.
A blast for blast.
And he has a serious side to him too. I mean, a lot of the joking and all, is what people see, and they think that he just clowns around a lot. But there's a very serious, tender-hearted side to him he's a really good guy. He's a good person.
He is. And funny thing was, he came here today because he and Teak threw out the first pitch to Kent DeColby. So Steve's here, and he obviously had to leave because he was going out to lunch with his wife, Karen. So he said, Steve, we've got all this food in here. Why don't you grab something to eat? Oh, no, I can't. I'm going out to eat with Karen. I said, just go over and grab a chicken wing or something. Just eat. He says, okay. So I walked him over, and okay, I'll have a chicken wing. And 5 chicken wings later, Steve's still eating, and I said, Steve, I'm not going to say anything to your wife, but this is your 5th one. He goes, I know. He says, but we got him hooked on the food. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's trying to be modest and nice and not try to, say, hey, I've got stuff to do. But then again, he turns around and acts like Steve.
Yeah.
But we love him. Camp wouldn't be the same without him. And of course, like many broadcasters that we've had in Pittsburgh before, one to be specific is Bob Prince. He was, growing up, he was the guy we listened to. But in the most recent times, Steve was the guy, and I think Pittsburgh is going to really miss him in the booth, calling those games and missing his voice, and I know we all will. But knowing that he's not going anywhere, he's going to be hanging around, and as long as he can, he'll be a Pirate, and I know he'll be in the organization.
Pirate for life.
Absolutely.
We know Steve is retiring from broadcasting and for the Pirates, and what does that mean to you, and what does Steve mean to you?
Oh, the camp would be not the same without Steve. He helps Kenya record every morning, and I don't know where he comes up with his material, but have you been down there? He just cracks you up every time. One of my favorite Steve Blass stories was I played for several years, and then I missed a couple of years, and I went down to visit, and the game was starting, and he was walking on the field, and I just came walking in. And he went, Kenny! And he took the time to come over and shake my hand and say hi. So these guys are our heroes, and, they're major league stars, but they become your friends, and, it makes you feel great.
I've never been fined by Steve, but my rookie year, I was picked by Steve. And we went to the Fantasy Camp Championship game. We didn't win it, but everybody says, your first year, you get picked by Steve Blass, you go to the Fantasy Camp. How do you do that? I said, he must have liked the films I sent him.
Well, there you have it. Steve Blass, not only a Pirate for life, but a remarkable man, a loving husband, and a proud dad. If you want to get up close and intimate with Steve, purchase his book and take yourself on that amazing life adventure with an amazing man.